We've already talked about how to graph something that looks like this. So now, what if we get something like this and we want to solve it and then graph it? Okay, so what do you need to know about solving inequalities? Here's the thing, it's actually just like solving equations. There's only two differences. First, the variable should always land on the left side of the equation. So if it lands on the right side, you flip the whole thing around. So for example, let's say I solve an equation and I get like this. Like when I solve an equation, if I get like something like 4 equals x, I just leave it, like that's totally fine. But if you get an inequality, you're going to take this whole thing and you're going to flip it around. So I'm going to put the x on the left, I'm going to put the 4 on the right, and then this sign has to flip around too, right? See how right now like the mouth is open towards the x? It's still got to be open towards the x. So I'm not changing the meaning, I'm just flipping it around. So this says x is greater than or equal to 4, right? This is a less than or equal to sign, but we want to flip it so the x is on the left, so we can say something like, you know, the value of this letter is greater than or equal to, or is less than or equal to, but we always want to start with this. So if you end up with something like this, you're good. Like you would just box it, you wouldn't flip it around. But if you do end up with the x on the right, then you need to flip it. And then the only other difference between equations and inequalities is that when you have an inequality like this, if you end up having to multiply or divide by a negative number, you flip this sign around. So for example, here, x is being multiplied by negative 4. So in order to solve it, I would divide by negative 4. I would divide by negative 4. I would do that on both sides, right? And just like an equation, I have to do it on both sides of the symbol. So this would cancel. Positive by negative is negative. Like all that is the same. But see this sign? I just divided by a negative right here, right? I divided by a negative. So this sign needs to flip. So see how before it was pointing to the left? Now it's pointing to the right, right? Okay, so take a look at that. And the same is true if I multiply, right? So it's multiply or divide by a negative number. Now it doesn't matter, see how this answer came out to be negative 2? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if this answer is negative 2, what matters is what happens here. And here I divided by a negative 4. On this problem, x is being divided by negative 5, so I will multiply by negative 5. And when I multiply by negative 5, I do this, right? This cancels, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. All of that is the same. But this sign, because I multiplied by a negative number right here, this sign's going to flip. So it was pointing this way, now it's going to point the other way. And this is what will be my answer. Okay, so those are the only two differences. So let's take a look at a couple short examples. Here I have negative 5x is less than 15. So I want to get x by itself. X is being multiplied by negative 5. I'm going to divide by negative 5. I get x, this is 15 divided by negative 5 is negative 3. I notice right here I'm dividing by a negative, so I'm going to go ahead and flip the sign around. So I get x is greater than negative 3, right? That would look like this. This would be a negative 3. This would be negative 4, right? Notice the numbers go backwards on the negative side, right? Like this is 0, negative 1, negative 2, so on. So here x is greater than negative 3. It would be shaded this way, right? And if you're still learning that, that's okay. You can just always reference your notes. Okay, let's take a look at this example. Here's x, so I want x by itself. I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. Okay, because x is over here. Look, I'm going to do it on both sides. Notice I'm using some of the same strategies I used to solve equations. 7 minus 15, I have more negatives than positives, so this is negative 8. Okay, and now I'm dividing by 4. Okay, negative divided by positive is negative 2. And this is x. Okay, now notice here, I did not flip the sign here. I did not, because I didn't divide by a negative. This was negative and this was negative, but the number I divided by was not negative. But what I do notice is that I have this x that's on the right side. So remember what we do if we end up with the x on the right. We just go ahead and we flip it. So I'm going to flip this, right? I'm going to flip the negative to the other side and make sure I flip this sign around as well. So here's my answer, right? This was my answer here. And I'm just going to squeeze in a little graph right here. This is negative 2. This is closed circle, and it's less than, so I'm shading to the left. Okay, so just a couple things to note. Just like solving an equation, the only thing to be aware of, multiply or divide by a negative, we flip the sign. And if we end up with x on the right, go ahead and just flip it over to the left. Flip the whole thing around.